Many over 50 are committing a sin that condemns them for eternity, and they probably aren't even aware of it. It's an insidious sin hidden deep in the heart that often goes unnoticed even by the most devout souls. But Jesus has already spoken clearly about it, warning of the spiritual danger it brings. My name is Diana, and I'm 58 years old. My life is dominated by pain and loneliness. I have been ill for some time, forced to spend my days at home, sitting by the window, watching people go by and tending to my garden and plants as best as I can. 2 years ago, my husband suddenly disappeared, leaving me with a void that seemed insurmountable. My children, my joy and pride, had taken different paths. Both had moved abroad to pursue their dreams, leaving me with a life I no longer understood. Phone calls became increasingly rare, and video calls turned into a distant memory of the moments we once shared. With my modest pension, I could barely make ends meet each day. Fortunately, I could afford the help of an assistant, a young woman who cared for me with kindness and patience. She was my only support, the only person who helped me walk, dress, and endure the pain that paralyzed me. Despite everything, every Sunday I was accompanied to church. My faith had always been my rock, my refuge. I recited the rosary 3 times a day as a constant prayer to remain close to God. I never doubted my devotion, yet inside me the weight of loneliness grew with each passing day. I missed my children, my grandchildren, but there was an even deeper pain, an open wound that I couldn't heal. The broken relationship with my family, with my siblings, weighed on my soul. Old grudges had divided us, and we hadn't spoken in 10 years, ever since our mother died and the inheritance tore us apart. Despite the pain, pride had always prevented me from taking the first step toward reconciliation. One morning, like any other, ordinary and monotonous, my assistant had gone out shopping, leaving me alone in my empty house. I was sitting by the window, lost in thought while tending to my plants and garden, when suddenly a sharp pain struck my chest. My heart began to beat irregularly, as if desperately fighting to survive. My head spun, and I tried to reach my life-saving pills, but I couldn't. My hand froze mid-air, and then everything went dark. I thought it was the end, that God had decided to call me home. But instead of falling into a peaceful sleep, I found myself in a terrifying place, a living nightmare. Flames blazed all around, illuminating faces twisted in pain and anguish. There was no doubt I was in hell. Demons surrounded me with fiery eyes and outstretched hands, ready to seize me. Every fiber of my being was filled with terror. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't respond, as if I were nailed to that cursed place. I couldn't understand why I was there. I, who had lived by Christian principles, praying and attending church devoutly, how had I ended up in this place? In the distance, I saw other people, souls as desperate as mine, but they still seemed able to communicate. Trembling, I approached a woman and asked, "Why are we here? What have we done to deserve this?" The woman, her face marked by profound sadness, looked into my eyes and answered in a tired, pained voice, "We are all Christians. We are here because we never forgave." It wasn't a blatant vice, but something far more insidious. We nurtured resentment in our hearts for years, allowing unresolved conflicts with friends and family to poison our souls. Those words struck me like lightning. My heart pounded, and immediately my thoughts turned to my family, to my siblings, to those endless arguments over our mother's inheritance. That senseless fight had kept us apart for 10 long years, over assets that should have been a blessing, but instead had made us stop talking. I had not seen my grandchildren grow up. Every religious celebration had vanished. I had remained alone because my pride had been too strong to ask for forgiveness. Now I understood. This sin of mine had led me to this place of eternal suffering. The woman continued in an even more serious tone, "But it isn't only resentment that brought us here. Many of us spent our lives harshly judging others, condemning their sins without ever looking within ourselves. We felt superior and righteous when in fact we were full of envy and arrogance. We wasted our time judging instead of working on our souls." Her words pierced me, opening wounds I had always avoided facing. I had judged too much, blind to my own faults. I was there, crushed by the weight of my inability to forgive. And in my mind, the faces of my siblings reappeared, also prisoners of their pride and attachment to money. I recalled their words, the very words that had fueled the conflict and reignited the anger in me. In that moment, it became clear. Hell was the place I deserved. Because despite everything, I continued to harbor resentment. Anger was a prison I had built for myself. It wasn't my family that had dragged me there. We had all closed the door to forgiveness. As long as I clung to that resentment, I would never be free. These reflections pierced my soul. I had allowed pride to consume me. I wept, feeling the weight of my mistake, and whispered, "Help me. I don't want to stay here." For the first time, a spark of hope ignited inside me. Suddenly, an irresistible force carried me to a completely different place. Everything was calm, enveloped in a sense of peace and infinity. Before me stood a radiant figure, almost indescribable. It seemed that everything around them was perfect, but I couldn't distinguish their features. Yet I could clearly hear their voice, even though their lips did not move, as if they were speaking directly to my mind. I don't know if it was truly Jesus, because I couldn't see his face, but I like to imagine that it was him. His first words struck me deeply. He spoke of peace, harmony, and the true meaning of being a good Christian. He said that very little was needed, that forgiveness would be the first step toward a new and better life. Then something extraordinary happened. He showed me images that seemed etched in my mind. I saw myself as a child, happy, playing and laughing with my brothers and sisters in a carefree atmosphere. Then the images changed. I had grown up, my hair graying, but I was still with them. We laughed, joked, and shared a meal, a scene full of love and warmth. The luminous figure spoke again, his voice resonating not only in my ears but in my heart and soul. "You are not alone in your pain, but how much unnecessary suffering is carried around in this world. Many of my children waste their lives chasing after the ephemeral, clinging to old grudges, nurturing pride, and forgetting the eternal. Every day is a gift, yet often you turn it into a burden, a missed opportunity to love, to forgive, to build unbreakable bonds. You are blinded by your pride and fears, and thus you stray from the joy I desire for you. Life is not made up only of what you possess or accumulate, but of what you sow in the hearts of others. Every kind word, every act of love, every gesture of forgiveness leaves an imprint that does not fade. Earthly time is short, a fleeting moment, but bonds of love are eternal. Resentment and pride, on the other hand, steal your precious time, driving you away from the peace I promised you. I have called you to live in love, to build bridges, not walls. Every time you choose forgiveness, every time you let go of hatred, you take a step toward the kingdom of heaven. But every missed opportunity, every day spent without reconciliation, is a wound, not only for you, but for your soul, for the family I have given you, and for the world I have created. Forgiveness is not only for others, it is for yourself. It is the key that frees your heart, allowing you to live lightly and joyfully. Do not let pride make you slaves, for true freedom is found in love, humility, and compassion. You have the power to change, to rebuild what has been broken. Do not wait until it is too late. Every moment is an opportunity to live fully, to let your heart find the light again. Do not waste this gift. Be like the one who lived for others, with love, without fear. Those words shook me deeply, as if every letter were engraved in my soul. I felt the power of an eternal love, a love that had never abandoned me, even in the darkest moments. I understood in that instant that no burden is too great to bear when the heart is free from pride, and that forgiveness is not only a gift to others, but an eternal gift to oneself. Suddenly everything disappeared. I woke up with a start, gasping, surrounded by my assistant and a group of doctors who looked at me with concern. My heart was still pounding frantically, but I was alive. "You've had a cardiac arrest," one of the doctors told me. "You're lucky, because most people don't survive something like that." But I knew it wasn't just a simple heart attack. I had seen something deeper, something otherworldly. It wasn't only my body that had stopped, my soul had received a warning, a vision of hell itself. I had been given a second chance, and I knew I had to seize it. I felt a new strength inside me, a desire to change, to make amends for the mistakes that had brought me so close to eternal damnation. In the days that followed, as my body slowly recovered, the memory of what I had seen tormented me. I could no longer ignore my sins. I could no longer allow pride to keep me from acting. I had to do something to change my life before it was too late. After weeks of reflection and prayer, I decided that it was time to act. I couldn't continue living with the weight of the resentment I had accumulated over the years. I decided to call a meeting with my siblings. No more lawyers, no more disputes over the inheritance, just us, sitting together and speaking with open hearts. I feared their rejection, but I was determined to take the first step. I had nothing to lose, only to gain. When we met, a long silence reigned. The emotions were palpable, and the pain of years of separation was evident on their faces. With my heart in my throat, I spoke. "I ask your forgiveness," I said, in a trembling but determined voice. "I'm tired of this war. We've lost too many years, and I can't stand this situation any longer. The inheritance doesn't matter anymore. I only wish for us to be a family again." Tears began to stream down my face, and at that moment, my siblings also started to cry. It was a shared pain that was finally finding its way to liberation. We talked for a long time, and gradually we began to reconcile. Each of us confessed our mistakes, and in the end, we reached an agreement. We no longer cared about houses, money, or legal disputes. We had rediscovered what was most important, our unity. From that day on, my life was never the same. The vision I had experienced, that journey to hell, not only changed me, but saved my soul. Every day, waking up with the awareness that I had come close to losing everything, I felt that a powerful and divine force had granted me a second chance. I don't know if it was God himself or an angel who showed me that vision, but it was clear that it wasn't just a simple heart attack. It was much more. From that experience, I learned that forgiveness is not only an act of charity toward others, but a necessity for our eternal salvation. The resentment I had harbored against my siblings was like a poison that had slowly been consuming me. Only when I let go of pride and asked for forgiveness did I find peace. After reconciling with my siblings, my house, once so empty and silent, filled again with voices, laughter, and life. Every week someone would visit me. Religious celebrations, Sunday lunches, and the laughter of my grandchildren returned to fill the once sorrowful rooms. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen in hell, those tormented souls, those devout Christians like me who had never learned to forgive. They were condemned not for obvious failings, but for the secret sins of the heart. I want to shout to the whole world, forgive while you still can. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let resentment consume you and drive you away from the people you love. Life is short, and none of us knows when our time will come. I have learned firsthand that God looks into our hearts. What He sees is our spirit, and He knows whether we are capable of love or if we are prisoners of pride and hardness. I think back to that passage in the Bible, and when you pray, if you have anything against anyone, forgive, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you your sins. How many times had I read those words? How many times had I heard them without truly understanding their meaning? Now I know they are not mere words, but a guide for our salvation. If we do not forgive, how can we expect God to forgive us? Forgiveness is the bridge between us and divine grace. I address these words to all of you who read or listen to my story. Do not wait until you are on the brink of death or in a desperate situation to understand how important forgiveness is. Do not wait until you see hell to realize how precious the time we have here on earth is for reconciling with those we care about. We have only one life to make peace, to apologize, to love as God loves us. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy. These words now have a deeply personal meaning for me. I have seen with my own eyes what happens to those who refuse to forgive, to those who live with hardened hearts. I do not want anyone to have to experience that horror, that agony. I want you to find the peace I found, to live with a light heart, free from the weight that separates us from God's love. Now, closing my eyes and thinking back on all that has happened, I cannot help but cry, not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. I was given a second chance, and I managed to make amends for my mistakes. I apologized. I let go of my pride, and I reconciled my soul with God and with my family. Forgiveness healed me. It set me free. Do you want to know how the inheritance issue ended? We found a simple and peaceful way to divide everything. One evening, sitting around a table, we hand-wrote an agreement that satisfied everyone. No more lawyers, no more disputes. The houses, which once were a source of division, became symbols of reconciliation and love. After years of conflict, time and money wasted, just 1 hour of sincere conversation was enough to settle everything. And in that moment it felt as if God Himself were with us, guiding our words and actions. Please do not wait until it is too late. Know that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. It is a gift you give yourself, even before giving it to others. It is the path that leads to true peace. And in the end, when the time comes to meet God, may you do so with a light heart, knowing that you have loved and forgiven as He taught us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me until the end. If you appreciated this story, I invite you to share it with 2 Christian friends and to comment with where you're listening from. In doing so, you will receive a blessing and help spread God's message. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications so you don't miss any more videos like this, which we publish several times a week.